You are going to be doing an assignment that will help you understand the next chapter of Anne of Green Gables a bit better. To do this assignment, you are going to connect a nonfiction text. Nonfiction means it is not able to include things that are made up. Fiction is not limited to facts. Fiction can include things that are made up. Nonfiction may not include any fiction. So nothing that's made up. You are going to use some nonfiction to help you understand what happens in our fiction title, our historical fiction. To investigate this, we'll first identify a topic that they share, and I'll help you do this because we haven't reached the part in Anne of Green Gables where they will share this topic, so I will need to help you with this. But then you are going to summarize the nonfiction text. For these first three items, you will not need to use complete sentences. On the fourth one, you will. Keeping that in mind, here is your nonfiction text. This is a photograph of an actual label from something called syrup of ipecac. So for now, I'll just read it to you because the parts that go around the side are a little more difficult to read. It says, for children from 1 to 12 years old in croup, 10 drops to something every 10 minutes until vomiting is induced. As an expectorant for adults, from 20 to 40 drops every 2, 3, or 4 hours. Then we have the label, Og G. Reimer, druggist. Duscher Apotheker, that is just German for doctor, and nowadays we would call this a pharmacist. And then the address, 102 Lincoln Avenue. I'm not sure what COR is an abbreviation for. Diversey Boulevard, maybe corner. And then it's from Chicago. Now you'll notice, and I had to make a guess at some things. There are some bits that were cut off at the corner that I did not want to make a guess at. Expectorant, I could see enough of this word, and I know enough about what ipecac is that I could make a very logical conclusion about what the word should be. That is the text. Now remember, we need to do some identification of other texts and summarizing and so forth. So in order to do that, you will need your spiral journal. We will be doing this on the page across from the summaries for chapter 16, 17, and 18. So on this side, you will need to label it connecting nonfiction text. Historical fiction especially is easier to understand if you know the facts of the time period. And very often you learn facts about the time period based on bits and pieces of a historical fiction piece of writing that you have questions about. So you go and research it. And so this is one that will help you understand much better what is coming. Number 1 here will match up with what number 1 is asking you here. So we need the historical fiction title. When you connect texts, you don't always have to use historical fiction, but in this case, that does work better. So our historical fiction title, that I am not telling you, that is the book that we are reading. What I am going to remind you of is you need to underline that book title. Make sure that you use the entire title. And no, I'm not making you guess. You can see that title right here at this point in the video. But make sure that you underline the title. Make sure that you capitalize things. And label this as fiction title. It doesn't have to be a sentence. We just have the title and we are saying, oh yes, this is the fiction title. The second piece that we are going to need is to identify the nonfiction title. Now this one happens to be underlined, but if we look back at the title of this text, it's not an entire book, is it? It does have a title, but it's a much shorter piece. So in this case, when you write the title Syrup of Ipecac over in your blank for number 2, you only need to use quotation marks. No, I'm not going to write it over for you, but I am going to remind you, use your quotation marks. And this is your nonfiction true text. Don't forget you are using quotation marks. All of the letters here are capitalized. You do not need to capitalize all of the letters, just the S. O does not need to be capitalized. The word of is almost never capitalized in a title, but ipecac, the I does need to be capitalized. So again, not a complete sentence. Number 3. This is where it gets a little trickier. What is the main idea? I can get myself to go back here. What is the main idea, the topic that they share? Well, you don't know that they share it, so let's just focus on the main idea, the topic. What is this about? The title gives you a hint. Ipecac. What is it telling you about ipecac? Is it telling you how to make it? Is it telling you the ingredients of ipecac? Is it telling you where to find ipecac? This part right here is where you have the most text. What does that seem to be focused on? Well, kind of seems like it's most focused on how to use ipecac. Tells you how to use it for children, tells you how to use it for adults. And it seems like ipecac is a medicine, so no need for complete sentences. How to use ipecac, comma, because we're going to tell a little bit more about ipecac, a medicine. Now, number 4, this is where you need to do a bit more on your own. Yes, you're going to get the fiction title. Yes, you're going to get the nonfiction title, but those you don't have to think too much about. The 4th thing we need to do now is we need to, let me go back here first, tell one part in the nonfiction. We need to summarize it. We're not necessarily going to use a page number because one of the reasons I chose this label for ipecac is to show you your nonfiction texts do not always turn out to be books, from books. So we are not going to need to use a page number, but we are going to need to summarize. And we need to find the main idea, and then you will have to come up with 2 details about ipecac. So I will put this sticky note here off to the side so that you can refer to this now as you realize number 4 is the main part of your assignment. What are the important ideas here about ipecac? We already said it's telling how to use ipecac. What is it that it's talking about using ipecac for? Right here, this illness called croup is what you would use the ipecac for. Who gets the croup? Children from 1 to 12 years old. It also tells you how to use ipecac for adults. But the main idea here is going to include the fact of, all right, what to do if children, or people, I guess we could say, have croup. how you are to use ipecac. We are going to say that. I am going to give you this first sentence right now, if this cooperates. The directions on the label tell that it is used for croup. All right, let's get that down, because important main ideas. The directions on the label tell ipecac is used. I got to my margin, so I need to start a new line. For croup. Your job is to get details about that main idea. In fact, I want you to get 2 details about that main idea. And be sure each detail is in its own sentence. So if we look back here at the ipecac, our main idea, the directions on the label tell ipecac is used for croup. We need some details. How is ipecac used for croup? So your assignment is to finish this. You will need 2 more sentences for number 4. Don't take up the whole page, because this is just our investigation of the nonfiction text. After the chapter, I believe it will be number 18, we will come back and say how this nonfiction text helps us understand better the action that happens in our historical fiction book. But today we're just looking at the nonfiction. You need to get 2 more details about that main idea, each detail in its own complete sentence. And I will end this video by showing you this label again, nice and close, so that you have plenty of time to investigate and find 2 more details that tell more about how ipecac is used for croup.